So today we are starting a new series of online talks on a very important subject. When we were sometime around June, July, August is when we start thinking about what is the next the theme for the next annual conference. And we consulted many of our trustees, many of our advisors, and it emerged that the one thing that we should really start paying attention to was the bioeconomy, particularly the circular bioeconomy space. Um, Thanks to Dr. Rajshri Joshi, who is a senior member of BIF and an advisor at STARS Forum, we were able to conceptualize what we want to talk about, why this is important, and what is it that we want to understand as an organization or as a group of individuals, group of NGOs, group of institutions working in the space of skills development, vocational education, livelihood promotion, technology development, and so on in the space. Because the bioeconomy, particularly from the way we have understood it, has a deep impact on all of India, in fact, all of Indians particularly. And we felt that it's a good time to start off to bring to focus what is actually happening in this space. Why do we need to start thinking more actively about the bioeconomy and more specifically the circular bioeconomy? And what is it that all of us as organizations, individuals interested in the overall development of the people in our country and even outside, how should we get involved in this space? Uh, STARS has always been very actively looking at what is at the frontier of science, technology, development, business, ways of running organizations, etc., skills development, vocational education, and so on. And this is the second time we're doing something which is seems like a very early stage involvement for a lot of us. Last year, many of you were in Pune, where we did a 2 day deep dive literally into what is artificial intelligence. If you remember, to 2024 was when OpenAI, ChatGPT suddenly became common common terms that people started using, and we wanted to understand in the non-profit space, in the skill development space, in the vocational education space, and so on. What is the role of AI? And that is a very successful uh, conference because we actually opened up our laptops and dived into real tools to get a flavor of how to use AI. This year, for the say circular bioeconomy, when we started to explore what is it that we want to know and who we should invite, we got we got a wonderful response from a range of people, some of whom have had a very deep understanding of the entire space itself, who have done a lot of work in the bioeconomy space in the form of research, in the form of policy development, in the form of helping institutions, governments, and enterprises work in the circularity, bringing circularity into their work. And there are many entrepreneurs that we got connected with who have developed systems, products to actually make the difference on the ground. And you will see that in this course of the next 5 days, we will be getting time to speak with each one of them, giving them the space to share their journeys, share their understanding, and help us understand how we all can get involved. So to start with, we invited Dr. Ganesh Kamath, who is the director, founder of Organica Biotech, to give us an understanding of what is bioeconomy. Uh, Personally speaking, for myself, until 6 months ago, I wasn't particularly clear about this subject. Many of us have heard of things like circular economy and so on, but what is the circular bioeconomy? What is bioeconomy itself? And we felt it would be wonderful to have someone give us an overall understanding of what is this space all about. The more I read it, the more I was able to find out about the bioeconomy space, the more interesting it seems and more relevant and more urgent it seems is it that all of us understand at least some parts of it, so that we are able to connect what's going on. So, with that intention, we invited two experts to kick off this conference today. First is Dr. Ganesh Kamath, who's a PhD in pharmaceutical sciences, came back from the US, started working in the sustainability space, a well known expert in the space of bioeconomy, has been working on various range of bioremediation technologies, sustainability technologies, and so on, deeply involved in what is going on and deeply involved in pushing the envelope also in the space of sustainability for us. Um, After Dr. Kamath, we also have Dr. Prasad Modak, who's going to come, and he will explain the other half of the title, which is what is circularity itself. And then we will be able to connect these two things. But before we start with the circularity aspect, may I request Dr. Kamath to, to give us a deep dive and also a broader understanding of what is bioeconomy, and help unravel what it is for all of us. Welcome to the conference, Dr. Kamath, and thank you so much for taking your time and so enthusiastically responding to our request to speak at today's conference. Over to you.
Thank you, Chaitanya. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm honored that you guys really invited me here. I'm like that, when every large musical event takes place, there is this junior star who comes and sets the mood for the real stars to come in. So I'll just play that role because Dr. Prasad, who's going to be talking about circular bioeconomy. So what I figured was I should just throw light on what is this bioeconomy, because this word biotech is very generally thrown around, very loosely, and I just wanted to put things into context, into perspective, into what the bioeconomy is all about. So basically, when we lead our life today, this year we call this guy Oscar. He's one of our colleagues. We just have named him, and all of us, in fact, are leading this life which is chemical dependent. If you look at statistics, average American household is subject. Anybody who lives in an American household is subject to 63 different chemicals in your life, in your day-to-day life. And it comes from all your sources. Like, for example, this Oscar here has some, obviously has gone purchased some fruits, which have been grown using chemicals, and probably has been used, some pesticides have been used. Then, to look good, there is a waxy layer which has been put on that fruit, and he puts this into a plastic bag, okay, which is and is drinking water from this plastic bottle and consuming a lot of bioplastics, as well as eating these sandwiches from a plastic container. So obviously all of these actions have a lot of health and environmental impacts. It is, you have these plastics going into our oceans. They're all our waterways are getting choked because of this plastic. The oceans, the fishes are eating this plastic, and I've even seen cows eat these plastics from garbage dumps. So, and we have all these pesticides which we are imbibing, which is causing, like, for example, what I was reading was the male sperm count comes down by 1 million every year because of the pesticides that are going and the molecules depositing itself into our testes. And as well as, we are toasting our kidneys, our liver, because of leading these chemical dependent lives. And obviously these have economic and social impacts, because you are at the end of the day going to become, there are more sick leaves that are going to happen, and with the advancing age, when your deposits of different chemicals in your body goes to a very large extent, it reduces your span of life as well. Like just breathing this air, people have been talking about how it reduces your span of life by about 6 to 7 years. So basically, and then it leads to all kinds of diseases. Like you have PCOS, which comes from endocrine disruptors. Like, for example, when you make the plastic bag, okay, it is not only the plastic, they add something called as a plasticizer. And this plasticizer is not only carcinogenic, it is also an endocrine disruptor, which means ladies are subject to PCOS, and almost like 30 to 40% of the girls now suffer from PCOS. And you have all these problems, which is causing infertility, and all the problems that come with this. So now scientists have figured out, now we have, whether we like it or not, have become slaves to these modern conveniences. Okay, so to give up all these modern conveniences is a tough ask. So then scientists have said, hey, let us figure out how to live, how to get biological alternatives, sustainable alternatives, so that we live from a chemical world, we start living in a biological kind of world. And this is where the whole bioeconomy comes from. So the bioeconomy is actually, if you can read it, it's a definition, is the production, utilization, and conservation of biological resources. It is like it uses knowledge, science, technology, and innovation to provide information, products, processes, and service, okay, across all economic sectors, aimed towards a sustainable economy. So as and when we move towards the biological process, okay, we find we are hopefully going to not only sustain the planet Earth, as well as improve the health of everyone involved on this earth. But when we say bioeconomy, okay, I would broadly put this into three types. One is the traditional biotech, okay, or the bioeconomy. The second is the knowledge-based bioprocess, where you are actually using biological knowledge. And then the third is the genetic modification. So let us understand, this discerning these three different types is very important over here. Okay. So like when you say traditional bioeconomy, you're talking about these Govardhan, like, these gobar gas plants. They have been around for a long time. And you use not only your animal cow dung, but also human waste, as well as crop residue and crop waste to generate biogas, which can actually give you cooking gas and so on and so forth. So this has now transitioned into the bioprocess economy, where people have taken city waste and are running, for example, even in Indore, they are running these biogas plants. They are modern, well cultured, pH is moderated so that you get the maximum biogas from these particular plants, which can then be used as energy. So then you have in traditional, you have the forestries, the agro-based products, the zero budget farming. Ayurvedic, for example, is a traditional bioeconomy. And then, the way we used to, our forefathers lived their life, okay, would all come under the traditional bioeconomy. And then we took cues from this particular bioeconomy, and probably invested more into what is happening around us, to find out, to engineer products based on extensive knowledge of natural biology, okay, through fermentation and biotech. For example, the earliest example of this is the antibiotics. If you look at antibiotics, they have been around for quite some time. The first one started with penicillin, and then we have gotten these antibiotics which are more effective, probably kills more types of bugs. And now we have a different problem. I'll get into that later on. So this approach basically reduces our dependence on fossil resources. Okay, and drives us towards a circular, low carbon bioeconomy. And then we have the more advanced bioeconomy, which involves genetic modification. It because we have now techniques and instruments which can give us more information. Okay, so we use genetic sequences, okay, to yield desirable yield of proteins, valuable proteins or biochemicals. So we can do genetic editing, and we can get certain biochemicals, certain enzymes with improved efficiency and the production of novel materials, fuels, and medicines. Of course, genetic modification has this fear of unknown, where there are intended health effects, that edited genes can cause allergies, toxicities, and other long-term health outcomes that we haven't observed yet. One of the more recent advances, I mean, examples really, is the mRNA vaccines, which have been administered to a lot of people, and a lot of healthy individuals in their early 30s are typically dying out of cardiac issues. And there is a large body which blames these mRNA vaccines. And this leads to a fear of what is going on. So similarly, there are BT brinjal, BT corn, BT what you might call wheat, which are genetically modified. And there is always that fear that we don't know what kind of proteins these genetic sequences may bring, which may cause long-term effects 10, 15, 20 years from now on. So let us look at the bioeconomy as far as India is concerned. Broadly, there is a large bioeconomy which comes from the plant kingdom. And when I say plant kingdom, there are these plant-based natural materials. Bagasse, which used to be a very big nuisance earlier, now is actually a very important bioresource for making a lot of different materials. Rice bran, rice husk, the cob of the corn, and bamboo is something which is now used very extensively. And there are a lot of products that are coming out that some entrepreneurs are putting out in the market using bamboo. There are bamboo-based tissues, and there is a specific type of bamboo which which is actually treated, and they have found it to be very much stronger than steel. And IKEA is figuring out how to use that bamboo in their furniture. Then you have the household and cleaning products. People were using all kinds of harsh chemicals, and they were getting exposed to these harsh chemicals. And now people, like one third of the cleaning products in the US is these plant-based household cleaning products. India is yet to catch up. Maybe less than 1% of India is using these plant-based products. But then slowly you see the trend changing, because you're all the time you're exposed, because we tend to be barefoot in our houses. And if you're using a chemical to clean your floors, then your skin is going to absorb it. Then you have plant extract based health supplements. There are a lot of health supplements which are coming out, lot of them coming from algal sources. So algae is something which is growing both, I mean, more often into the in the marine side of things. But there are a lot of health supplements, like xanthines, which are from plant sources. And plant tissue culture, where plants are grown with desired um, but, which are more disease resistant, and which are then instead of going through, you kind of control the type of variety of the plant by using a tissue culture. And from the tissue culture lab, you're growing them in the field. And then there are, there are a couple of young kids I met just about a couple of months back, and they were in the business of vegan leather, and you couldn't tell the difference between the real leather and this leather from vegetable sources. And the thing to look here is that from a current market size of $11 billion, it is going to go to about 30 billion, and this CAGR is growing at about 10% right now. So, and then you have biomaterials which come from microbial bioprocess, because one of the biggest things is these bioplastics which have come in. Most of them tend to be polylactic acid and polyglutamic acid, polygalactic acid kind of uh, uh, based, and different copolymers are used to get different materials for making plastic bags and packaging material. There is a use of modified starch and cellulose and polyhydroxybutyrate, which is generally non-water soluble. It is secreted by a lot of microorganisms, okay, which can then be used as bioplastics. And then you have microbial yeast-based leather and a lot of fungi, which give out different pigments and colorants, where you can use this for textiles as well as for these materials. Now, what are these major sectors contributing to the bioeconomy? Okay, biopharma is the big boy, because 69% of the money investments that is going into in the biotech industry is going towards biopharma. Okay, where you have a lot of today about in by 2030, one third of our medications that we are using will be a biological source. And in another 10 to 15 years, this number is expected to be half. Okay, so half of the medications that you will be using will be from a biological source. What are these? These are like earlier, we had insulin coming from animal resources. Now they are coming from genetic recombinant sources. Whether you have vaccines, monoclonal antibodies, and a lot of different biological materials for cancers as well as for uh, immune diseases. A lot of us now suffer from these autoimmune disease, okay, because of which a lot of biopharma medications are being discovered for treating these innovative for treating these immune diseases. So then comes the biochemical area. This is growing at a mind-boggling kind of pace, because you can now, whatever used to be from chemical sources are now coming from more from biochemical sources. Like for example, organic acids, then a lot of amino acids are made from these fermentation process. Earlier, you had those of you who used to use these contact lenses. Okay, the surfactants used to be of a chemical origin, and they used to like really irritate your eyes. But today they are of microbial fermentation origin. They're called as rhamnolipids, which are used as surfactants, and they are less irritating or to your eyes. So because they are more biocompatible. For example, then there are a lot of industrial enzymes like your stonewash jeans or textile, which are treated with certain enzymes. They all come from fungal fermentation sources. Then you have platform molecules. Like for example, there are a lot of intermediate molecules which are used for making polymers, resins, and coatings. For example, you have DuPont, which used to be the biggest manufacturer of polyester. About 20 years back, they have done this 20 years back. they have gone and they used to get the raw material for making polyester used to be 1,3-propanediol, which was from a petrochemical source. Okay, but now what they do is they feed some bacteria, some cornstarch, and the cornstarch is then changed to 1,3-propanediol, okay, which is then polymerized to get polyester. So now their whole raw material has come from a sustainable source. So similarly, you have marine biotechnology where, of course, there is a lot of seafood out there, which is which is a significant part of the marine biology. But then if you go into marine biotechnology, okay, there are a lot of hidden things beneath the surface. Okay, it could be novel microorganisms which secrete a very novel antibiotic. It could be a very, there are certain sponges they have discovered off the coast of Andaman, which can be used for breast cancer. And then you have biofuels, which are both on the marine side, where algae is grown and then converted to biofuel, as well as on the land, where you have biofuels, you can take grass and convert that into biofuel, as well as corn and sugar cane, which can be used as biofuel. And like anywhere between 10 to 20% of the petrol that we use will be substituted with these biofuels. They even recently had flown a plane, I think SpiceJet, which was run on 100% biofuel. So, and then you have the bioagriculture, because agriculture has been traditionally using very chemicals and a lot of pesticides, which are causing all kinds of problems. It is not only causing problems to the humans, it is also killing the soil, which is affecting the productivity of the soil. So our agriculture growth that is coming more from more land going into agriculture rather than improving the productivity of the soil. And not recently, about 2 decades maybe back, Monsanto did a very large study, okay, where they did 175,000 acres of study where they were trying to find out what is it that uh, affects the agriculture the most. One is the genetics of the seed, what they found, and the other they found is the metagenomics of the soil. When I say metagenomics, it means the combination of biological cells that are there in the soil dictates how your agricultural output will be. So in this bioagriculture, we have uh, uh, agri biopesticides, which are used for solving the disease problems. Okay, and then there is a class called biofertilizers, which can help you do the nitrogen, phosphorus, potash from chemical sources fixed by the is a make made available by the microorganisms. And then even different micro elements can be actually transported into the plant system using microbes. So, and then there is a whole class of different products that are coming, which are called microbiome, where it is like just like your intestine has a microbiome, there is a microbiome for the agriculture, which actually improves, reduces disease, and gives you better quality output. And of course, biological waste management. I mean, this is becoming huge because right from biogas, conversion of your waste into biogas, as well as treatment of wastewater is being done more by controlling the biology of the wastewater plant. Okay, where you can actually control the biology. And for example, you can even treat your septic tanks using biological materials. This is like a broad, simple thing, about what happens. Okay, you generally have a fermenter, you put in an organism, okay, you grow that organism in the fermenter using specific media, because the organism behaves only as good as the food it gets. Okay, and then based on, after you harvest the organism, you can either harvest the cells, or what it secretes is harvested and separated, and then you do a downstream processing. This is an example of what we do. We do climate resistant agriculture, where what we have done is we have looked at the microbiome of the plant, of the rice plant, and we are able to kind of increase the rice output, not only improve the quality, but increase the rice output by about 30%. And this has been validated by universities. And how do we do it? Is because we use certain microorganisms which can actually stimulate about 5 gene pairs that are responsible for the drought protection in the plant. And just by stimulating those genes, you can actually protect your plant from diseases, from drought. And this is a sanitation example where near Lake Chilka, where there were a lot of pollutants which are flowing into the lake. This is a community which is in Behrampur, where a lot of bio toilets were put in by our partners, and we used our biological product to put in these septic tanks to help them reduce the odor in the bio toilets and convert the black water into gray water. And this is biomaterial example where bamboo cultivation is becoming very, very big now. I know personally several people who have gone into bamboo cultivation, so that they can, yeah, it grows. It doesn't require too much attention. It grows in marginal and undesirable land, and you can use this for either for, some of them use it for making biochar, and some of them use it for a lot of other side materials. Now, I did mention about bioeconomy against antibiotic resistance. People must have heard, okay, antibiotic resistance where because of antibiotics, okay, newer and newer antibiotics being used, and people becoming immune to those. So here is a situation where, you know the infecting organisms actually talk to each other, okay, and they have a chemical way of talking, okay, and by disrupting that, what is called as quorum sensing, okay, there is a new branch that has come about which can actually disrupt their communication, and therefore save you from all kinds of different infections. The gut brain axis is becoming very big now. Okay, 20, 30 years back, people talked about one disease which happened because of your microbiome, but now your microbiome actually dictates, okay, it talks to your brain, it influences your mood, okay, and makes you more or less anxious, okay, has control on your appetite and also your cognition. And there are about, today, if you go to literature, you will find about 25 diseases which is being blamed because of a lousy microbiome in your large intestines. The latest to join that list is Parkinsonism, which we all along thought is because of the brain, but now they found it is because of the gut and the microbiome in your gut, okay, which actually kind of causes all the problems. So importance of bioeconomy in India, it drives sustainable growth. It was very obvious. And if you use the right bioeconomy, it can boost rural incomes and jobs. It can improve resource efficiency and circularity. You can grow crops with using less fertilizer. Okay, you can grow crops using 50% less pesticides. Okay, so that is improving resource efficiency. It helps meet the climate and sustainability goals. And this is mind-boggling. I want you to pay attention since we are talking bioeconomy and not just biotechnology. Okay, the current contribution of biotechnology is 4.25% in our GDP, which was 10 billion in 2014. Today is $196 billion. Okay, and this is going to reach over $1 trillion in a decade. Okay, that's a mind-boggling number, and that's why you find the government calling biotechnology to be one of the pillars in for Viksit Bharat 2047. So the market range is a large and growing market. Okay, the biotech DBT is actually uh, you know giving a lot of grants to and there's a good vibrant startup ecosystem, and investments are coming across diversified sectors. Now, what it means to the farmer: new income streams, safer crops, more resistant to disease. Okay, affordable energy if you can tap into the waste, the agricultural waste. Okay, where women and youth startups are slowly cropping up. Okay, using the bioeconomy and the easier practices. So, what it means to the jobs scene? Okay, there will be a demand for new skills in these industries. Okay, and there will be a lot of waste to value industries that are coming up. Huge number of players, and the barrier, of course. I mean, of course, we have to improve our civic sense. Okay, and the bioeconomy or the biotechnology is associated with subtle and gentle qualities. अरे वो bio है तो it is not going to be as effective if there's not enough testosterone in it. So this associated with gentle qualities. So application of biology, like especially by farmers and at the can improve a lot of their crops. Lack of infrastructure is a big problem. Okay, lack of awareness is even a bigger problem, and the government is yet to react, because even in agriculture, I see they are currently reacting to 30-year-old technologies. Initiatives needed, political willingness, investment. It requires huge investments, and the good part is just 2 weeks back the government announced 1 lakh crore in biotech in R&D in these new areas, not just biotech but also AI and semiconductors and all these areas. Skill development and workforce training is also required. Okay, and because without this we cannot make progress, and this has to reach the last mile, and farmer and rural participation models are very much required for it to become bioeconomy to be successfully implemented in India. So future trends, there are a lot of future trends. I was one of the speakers at the ESTIC in Viksit Bharat about a couple of weeks back. I found a Japanese company which talks about using designer fiber for fabrics. They have seen gene sequences of different fibers which they have injected into microorganisms, and making them, the organisms are secreting these new age fabrics which have different properties than the current silk and wool. Okay. Food from air. There was a US company which talked about converting carbon dioxide to carbon and the nitrogen in the air to ammonia, and using this as microorganisms to get different microorganisms or different flavors, and then creating fake meat, fake eggs, fake whatever, and they have got permission for human trials now. Designer baby is very controversial, but you could see that maybe, I don't know, if it faces the trials, then maybe 15, 20 years from now. 3D bioprinting of organs. if you organs can be actually, we'll see a day soon, maybe in a decade, where actually your organs will be printed, bioprinted and replaced. Okay, if you have a failing organ. Genome sequencing of infants, well, it's already out there now. You can go and get your genome sequenced, where you can find out which medication you will respond better to, okay, than compared to others, and what is the disease that you are most likely to kind of face in your future life. So Vision 2047, okay, for India is innovation, self-reliance, healthcare for all, hopefully clean cities and healthy environments. I guess the second is dependent on the third, and the bio-based agriculture and food security. Thank you very much. I hope I could do justice. It was such a large volume material that I had to squeeze it in this short amount of time.
Yeah, I think this is, we gave you a very tough task, Dr. Kamath, to squeeze in so much knowledge, so much information into just a capsule of 20, 30 minutes. So, but nevertheless, I think you've really covered many of the headlines wonderfully well. I think a couple of things that you talked about is which is the lack of awareness.
Yeah,
I think this is one important effort from our side to contribute in helping raise awareness about what's going on.
yeah,
Some of the important things that you talked about in terms of the opportunities going forward, I think there's some very interesting. In the next 4 days, we will have some very interesting young as well as not so young innovators who have done some really wonderful work in trying to come up with ideas and solutions to address some of these problems and that you've spoken about. So hopefully we will get to see what is actually happening in this space. And I'm hoping that through these conversations we will get to know and understand that this is not just a matter of recycling and sustainability, but there's a lot of science going into this whole field. So it's wonderful to see technology, science, entrepreneurship, skilling, sustainability, climate change, a lot of health, everything coming together in just one place. And it's fascinating to see how much more there is to learn and how much more there is to do. When you spoke about clean cities, it is something that all of us really, really hope for. I was just reading somewhere yesterday that in the top 50 polluted cities of the world, 45 are in India. And that's how bad things are. So I think, hopefully something will happen sooner rather than later, and we should be able to move forward on that. So thanks once again, Dr. Kamath. We'll be grateful for your,
Hello. Yeah,
yeah.
there is one question. What are the opportunities for organizations working in the skills training area, especially for rural and semi-educated youth?
yeah. See, for these kind of areas, mostly, uh, fundamentally, it is more on the bioenergy, okay, and on agriculture areas, where this skills need to be imparted, because there are a lot of the PM, okay, his favorite topic is zero budget farming, okay, and but then how to kind of actually get there is something, if the farmer has to be trained, okay, it is a very big skill that needs to be imparted to the farmer, and to change his mindset from a chemical base to a natural based itself is a big challenge. And then it becomes very mind boggling, so skills would be mostly needed in these areas.
In fact, actually, one of our uh, uh, speakers on day 3 is going to specifically focus on green skilling and the green skilling opportunities as well, not just within India but even outside. And I think we may be able to go a little bit deeper in on the skilling aspect there.
As a part of our work, okay, what we did was we have taken several soil samples from all over Maharashtra. Okay. And I can tell you that, see, soil has three different components. One is physical, okay, and one is chemical, and the third is biological. Okay. And the current testing shows you what is physical and chemical. Like you can do an NPK of the soil, you can look at the different elements. Okay. But what we found when we did the biological testing, we found that most of the soils that come to our lab are actually destroyed. Okay. They are actually dysfunctional. Okay. The and therefore you get suboptimal output, okay, from the soils that you are using. And today, soil is our biggest problem per se. And there are a lot of NGOs, working on save your soil kind of movement. But that is absolutely true. I mean, uh, just telling, training the farmer to take care of his soil, if not anything, at least increase his organic content in the soil. Okay, increases organic carbon. It just requires 2% of organic carbon nowadays. Okay, but most of the soils have less than 0.5% of organic carbon. So therefore, that would make a huge difference. Okay, at the ground level.
Yeah, there are a few more questions.
Sure.
There is one question is how do you address the biological systems that contribute usually to air quality degradation, greenhouse effects such
Yeah.
as methane emission, etc.
Yeah, see, basically the amount of methane emission, like for example, there is this big hoo-ha about farmers contributing to methane, doing rice, or for that matter, even degradation. That amount of methane contributed is very, very minuscule, okay, compared to what man-made contributions are happening. Okay, so the kind of this one contribution by natural degradation and farming is very, very minuscule. I don't have the number offhand, but we did this study and it is very, very minuscule.
Yeah, one question is related to hand holding. Is there any hand holding is available? Is
What kind of handholding?
uh, for startups or
Yeah, of course,
something?
of
Yeah,
course. Yeah, feel free to get in touch with me. Okay,
yes.
yeah, through Chaitanya, and I'll be happy to handhold anybody who's interested in this, any kind of business help they need. I'm happy to help.
Yeah, the last question, how can we make bio-based products cost competitive with traditional plastic products?
Uh, see, when it comes to, see, it is an evolving science. Okay. Uh, like, for example, I talked to you about that fiber. Okay. Now, this is just 2 weeks back. I found out about that Japanese company and I asked them, what does it cost to make this fiber? They said now it is costing like a cashmere. Cashmere, majority of the people can't afford it. Okay. But then when you go into mass manufacturing, okay, when you scale up, the costs typically come down. So basically what it comes down to is really sensitization of the use of such material among the general populace of this country. Okay, and the awareness. Once the awareness comes, okay, automatically the like for example your cloth bags. Okay, like because and then there is like Maharashtra has banned plastic, and generally there is a trend that people don't like to accept plastic bags nowadays. Okay, so automatically the retailers are forced to kind of use other materials, and when they use, and I see that the price of the cloth bag has actually come down, okay, to a affordable level. Okay, when it comes to and different materials are used. Okay, and some materials usually kind of and there is a way innovation kind of finds a level by which your costs come down and the market dictates. Okay, the how this will the cost will come down. Otherwise, people will simply not use.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I think there are already one or two more questions, but I think we'll come back to those questions maybe towards the end, since Dr. Prasad Modak is also here, and
Yeah,
we've had a good initial introduction to bioeconomy. I think this is a good time to look at the other half of the what is
yeah,
the circularity behind this whole thing. And I think that will really complete the circle, if you will,
yeah.
um, understanding bioeconomy, and now understanding the circularity and what is so critical about it. So thank you so much, Dr. Kamath. Please, if you can just stay on with us, because I'm sure
Sure.
there'll be a few more questions that will come up. There are
Yeah.
already a few more, but we'll come back to that at the end of Dr. Modak's
Yeah.
presentation. Let
I
me
was
use a
just a
couple.
warm up. Prasad is the real star.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's a great way to introduce. You said it in one word, what I would have said in a para. But yeah, I mean, I think we are extremely fortunate to have Dr. Prasad Modak as one of our opening speakers today. He's an internationally recognized figure in environment, in sustainability, in the circular economy space, has been working in this space for several decades now, has consulted with governments, with institutions, and so on. He has taught at marquee institutions like the IIT Bombay, Sitara, and so on. Written many books, and is a very what shall I say, a very popular blogger as well, on a range of topics. And I think when I reached out to some people to speak at this conference, and I told them about who's already there, many of them actually were already readers of your blog, Dr. Modak. So it is good to see that there are people who are already familiar with what you've been saying, and I thought it was a good thing for both of you to set the stage for what's going to come in the next 4 days. So with that, I won't spend too much time and take away the time from the audience to listen to you. So over to you, Dr. Modak. With your help, we'll probably understand this entire space a little bit better now.
All right. Thank you, Chaitanya, and good evening to everybody. Can I just share my slide deck? I think Ganesh's
Uh,
slides are still
you
on.
are you are on mute, Chaitanya sir.
Yeah, I'll just make you a co-host so
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
share.
This is good. Yeah, thank you. So I think after a very clear and very comprehensive presentation from Dr. Kamath, I will do my very best to confuse everybody here. And pardon me, Chaitanya, but the subject is so sometimes, how shall I say, fluid. It's very difficult to draw boundaries what exactly circular economy is and what is bioeconomy. And let me add one more term, green economy. And what I will do now is walk you through these three terms: green economy, circular economy, but I'll speak just a slide on bioeconomy because Dr. Kamath has already covered very extensively what bioeconomy really means. So let me now share my slides and just tell me, Chaitanya, whether these slides are visible.
Yes, your
Yes, they
screen
are.
can
Yeah.
is visible.
All right. What I would do now is firstly introduce these three terms I talked about: green economy, circular economy, and bioeconomy very briefly. Then let's look into how these three terms compare and what kind of messages are they signaling. obviously there are lots of similarities in these concepts, so we'll draw some similarities. Makes a sense, isn't it, that you should be fusing these models together. In other words, people are looking at bio green circular economy, and that's not really my own term. This is a term which has come very recently from the government of Thailand. They call this as a BCG model, which is the very interesting fusion of all these together. And they have made that as a national program to move ahead. And I think in many ways, many countries are also talking about fusion. So we will end this presentation talking about how these very intersecting concepts can be fused for best of the results. Now, the reason these concepts have really come about in terms of the word green or circular and bioeconomy, we often say that the tipping point has now arrived. And there is a whole challenge that people are questioning whether the changes we are facing will really be anytime reversible. And even a slightest doubt on their reversibility is giving us a dire need to rethink our economy. And it's also very important that that economy should be in harmony with the natural systems. This statement takes us back traditionally how we all lived when we had small population. We did not have any concept of urban and rural, and people lived happily so by recognizing the limitations or assimilative capacity of the natural systems and how those natural systems were supporting their livelihoods. But things have changed, and therefore we are a little more concerned that if we want to explore how do we reduce the risks to our natural systems, then we have to look for newer paradigms. And these paradigms should be looking at different models of consumption and production. And that's important, and that has been now recognized by several nations, and we put them together in the Sustainable Development Goal number 12, where we talk about sustainable consumption and production. But the supporting to such ideas have been efforts to come up with frameworks. I would use the word framework rather than a strategy on green economy, circular economy, and bioeconomy. And they are getting more and more momentum, especially in discovering the intersection. Now, what is this green economy? And there is no universal, internationally agreed definition, but the most commonly used by United Nations Environment Program way back in 2011 says that green economy is one that results in improved human well-being, so that is the priority, social equity, extremely important, said explicitly here, while significantly reducing environmental risk. The word risk is important to be remembered. And ecological scarcities, in many ways, it brings in the concept of resource security. And it's an economy which is low carbon, resource efficient, and socially inclusive. And remember, this was said in 2011. The word low carbon wasn't that frequently used. So it was a very futuristic description of what green economy was looked at. And therefore, the focus was to re-examine the economic activities, the infrastructures we are creating, uh, bringing in not just the sovereign funds, but also the private investments. All this done in such a way that we reduce carbon emissions and pollution, enhance energy and resource efficiency, prevent biodiversity and ecosystem loss. And the whole strategy then would mean that we achieve green growth in income and employment. Now, here the underlying part is the recognition of natural capital as a critical economic asset and a source of public benefits. And the concept actually rolled out, more so when we saw melting of the economy in 2008-9, and to revive the economy back again, United Nations Environment Program's ED that time thought about an approach of greening of the economy. And I remember I was a part of that journey, and the idea was to figure out where you could do very strategic reforms and investments that would help the economies to roll back while rethinking of the future differently, structuring economies in a way that you are well aligned to the concept of green economy. Now, here you see in this slide another prefix added, which is inclusive green economy. And the word inclusive was really coming from what we talked earlier, the definition of social equity. But the inclusive here was talking about sharing, collaboration, solidarity, resilience, interdependence, opportunity, working across the social strata, that no one is left behind. That point of no one being left behind was the spirit of the term inclusive circular economy. And the idea was, as I said earlier, to therefore discover again. I'm saying again because we know we already always have had traditionally. We call this as a traditional ecological knowledge, as a matter of fact, into sustainable lifestyles. They're influencing sustainable consumption and production, encouraging green entrepreneurship through the advancement of eco innovations, facilitation of resource efficiency, and mainstreaming of green consumer behavior. So, this concept basically moved even deeper when we said the word green, inclusive green economy. I'm not going to take you through each of these milestones, but you would see that some of the important timelines go back as early as 1989. The reason I'm saying is that though you see in this slide one of the last boxes, 2011 Green Economy Report released by UNEP, the term was coined way back in the Government of UK report titled Blueprint for Green Economy, way back in 1989. So it's not a new concept, a new term, but it's been there for at least last 35 years. Then in 2008, I was talking about that when the economy was almost melting, the UNEP came up with this Green Economy Initiative. And to guide both policies and the investments towards a green growth, the word we used earlier. Then there was a concurrence, a lot of initiatives being discussed at various national roundtables. And they launched a program called PAGE, which got initialized with 16 governments, and India got in quite late. In 2018, India joined PAGE program under the green economy. And then you also see around same time, OECD countries' declaration on green growth. You also know, many of you, the Green Growth Initiative, which came out from Korea. Then European Union switched to Green Initiative. The PAGE program, incidentally, in India ends now by the April of 2026. And that PAGE program worked very closely with the Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change. Now, any programs like this, which are economy-wide, have to have certain key principles. And the green economy framework following 5 principles. First, the well-being principle, then the justice principle, then the planetary boundaries principle, which doesn't really look into geographical boundaries, but planetary boundaries. most importantly, efficiency and sufficiency principle. Many times you use the word efficiency, but you have to also think at the same time about the sufficiency. And the idea through this principle was to support sustainable consumption and production, and then the good governance principle, which is setting out basically the accountability and the resiliency of the institutions who would shape that green economy. It's important to look at these principles because principles ultimately guide the actions, and many of the action programs which emerged from those countries who agreed to follow green economy program came up with their action plans. If you just looked at the one of the principles I talked about, which is efficiency and sufficiency related principles, it basically talks a lot in terms of don't just use resources efficiently, but ensure that sufficient resources are available for the various players in the economy, people who are dependent on their livelihoods, businesses who are supplying products and services, all of them must receive sufficient resources. In a way, equity was being discussed, and I think that's important part when we talk about bringing the economy to more of an efficiency, but at the same time meeting the sufficiency for a healthy well-being of people, businesses, and therefore the overall economy. Now let's look at the next term, circular economy. What is it? Once again, today circular economy has more than 170 definitions. Each country has put their own definition in their own perspective. But essentially, this is a paradigm which is looking at how do we eliminate waste and pollution in the first instance? How can we circulate the products that we produce and the materials which we use at their highest value? In other words, how can we maximize the resource recirculation? And how do we bring in the resource pool a regenerative feature? And that regenerative feature is important so that we are ensuring both resource distribution and resource security. And since the interest also is to contribute to mitigating the climate change, it should look at all those possible approaches, such as going to low carbon economy and transitioning to renewable energy. Now, the circular economy model looks at leasing, reusing, repairing, refurbishing, recycling, keeping the products and the materials as long as possible to get maximum value. And we make attempt how can we keep extending the life of the products through these measures. And it differs, therefore, from the traditional linear economic model where you produce, sell, use, and then put the residues to the landfill or incinerate. Instead, what you see on the right is we bring in the use, produce, and sell, what we have on the left-hand side of this slide, and we intercept here by repairing before throwing, reuse as much as possible, refurbish so that it is functioning almost at the same functionality as the original product, and in the end of life, and even in the intermediate stages, think about recycling the materials. And one can keep on adding more and more R's. One of my books talks about 12 R's, in fact, that the first R being just refuse. And that's how you can apply these R's in the circular economy. One of the very famous diagrams when the concept was growing and I would say a lot of discussion started happening, Ellen MacArthur Foundation came up with a butterfly diagram to explain the circular economy model. And what they visualize, what you see in front of you, is the left and the right portion, which looks like wings of the butterfly. And the one, what you see here on the right, is the technical cycle, which we just described, in fact, which has reuse, refurbish, recycle, and share also, which we call as a collaborative consumption. When we talk about Ubers and Olas, they are actually a way of addressing mobility needs through collaborative consumption, or your Airbnb is a collaborative consumption. What you see on the left of this butterfly, the wings of the butterfly, and that is which is biological, which is very, very close to what Dr. Kamath talked about. He talked about farming, collection, regeneration, biochemical feedstock, biogas through anaerobic digestion, right? Extraction of biochemical feedstock, and so on and so forth. All these together give you a very interesting material flow, the technical and the biological cycle. The technical cycle, as I said, if I were to amplify that diagram, it is talking about sharing, which I said collaborative consumption, maintaining, reusing, redistributing, refurbishing, remanufacturing, which is supreme, and of course, recycling. Whereas biological cycle will look at regeneration, better techniques for farming, composting of the agricultural waste, for example, uh, cascading, where the material moves, for example, using, I think Dr. Kamath talked about it also, using food residue to make textiles. For example, you have already fibers, pineapple fibers, which are woven into fabric and so on and so forth, and the extraction of biochemical feedstock. All these constitute different elements of the biological cycle. So if you looked at both the technical and the biological cycle of that butterfly diagram, the benefits which we see is environmental protection, value retention, and closed material loops. In fact, this strategy tremendously helps in decarbonization. In fact, now it has been found that about 45% of greenhouse emissions, gas emissions from 5 high-intensity sectors can be mitigated just by practicing circularity. Circular economy, therefore, is a very good vehicle to meet your net zero goals. And it's not surprising, therefore, that the government of India launched a mission circular economy, started talking with 11 line ministries, encourage each line ministry to come up with a circularity action plan. And while that is happening at the national level, we also see at the state level, like the state of Gujarat came up with their statewide circular economy action plan. So you are achieving here not only the environmental protection, you are also reducing your dependence on the raw materials. In fact, the Atmanirbhar Bharat, in fact, rests a lot on the practice of circularity. And while doing so, the benefits also come to job creation, innovation, apart from the economic benefits. So jobs and entrepreneurship is also a part of the that shows importance of circular economy. Just a slide to complete the bioeconomy bit again, and this is the definition FAO. I think Dr. Kamath used that definition. It's a production, use, conservation of biological resources, including related knowledge. Knowledge is very important, science, technology, innovation to provide information, products, processes, and services to all economic sectors with the aim of moving towards a sustainable economy. This is 2020 definition, which was put by FAO. I'm not going to into details, but what you see here is a cross-cutting and multi-sectoral nature in its structure of bioeconomy. It is also having pillars such as food, nutrition, security, fossil fuel emissions to address them, to move to alternate sources of fuel, biofuel, natural resource scarcity is addressed, climate change is getting addressed, and then therefore you move towards sustainable economic development. So, what is also said here in the research by McKinsey Global Institute that as much as 60% of the physical inputs to the global economy could in principle be produced biologically. I think this is what you heard in Dr. Kamath's presentation with illustration. So there's a huge role to move away from the conventional material economy to bioeconomy. And this means, again, going back to the objective of decarbonization, becoming resource efficient, maintaining resource sufficiency, and so on. There are three slides which I'm running. They are busy slides, but I'm just showing here. And Chaitanya, copy of these slides, I'll be giving it to you. So if anybody is interested later on, can take a look. But indeed, one should compare what is green economy, circular economy, and bioeconomy. They they are all in unison in many ways, but the focuses are slightly different. In green economy, you can look at it as in really the umbrella concept. It does include elements of circular economy, bioeconomy, also standalone ideas, and it underpins the role of all ecological process. Whereas circular economy is more resource focused, mainly aimed at reducing the interdependencies between resource use and economic growth. Bioeconomy, by and large, if you look at it, is also resource focused. It is actually bringing impetus on technological development, innovative solutions within the bio-based resources. Each one has different focus areas. Uh, there are inputs each economy is asking from the lithosphere. There are certain outputs that each of these concepts are promising in terms of societal outputs, and inputs from natural and semi-natural ecosystems. They differ slightly there, and in meeting inter and intra-generational needs, each one has its own perspective. If you later on read through these slides, you will agree with me that there is a tremendous overlap, commonalities between these three areas. In fact, as I said in the beginning, gives a good reason why we should not be fusing these concepts into something which is much more holistic. So if you looked at the similarities on that basis, all of them drive decarbonization. And decarbonization goals are getting addressed by green economy, right in this definition, circular economy I talked about, and also tremendously in bioeconomy, because we are talking here about advancing technologies that can efficiently convert biomass into biofuels and bioproducts. And they all, in many ways, contribute to reducing carbon emissions or driving decarbonization. Second important area of similarity is accelerating uptake of clean energy sources. And again, you would see that there are similarities that they share, where we reduce the dependence on the fossil fuels. We are actually moving more and more through circular economy into processes such as refurbishing, remanufacturing, which in fact reduce tremendously the consumption of virgin resources. And that is something which is often being used by conventional energy sources. So more and more uptake starts happening of clean energy. And you have then, of course, the third area of similarity is promoting resources efficiency. I'm not going through each of these slides. I just wanted to flash to show you that there are tremendous overlapping areas between the three concepts to the same goals. Three goals we took: decarbonization, uptake of clean energy sources, and promoting resource efficiency. So, if you start fusing all these ideas together, then you're hitting on a circular bioeconomy. And this diagram is attempting to show the three different systems fusing together. You will see in this diagram that many of the key areas, what we talked about, are getting reflected. Society being at the center, and you will see the drivers on one side, nature at the bottom, which is natural capital, and we are pumping in as much renewable energy as we can, avoiding fossil fuels. We have bioproducts, we have biomass, bioprocessing, and then you also have the renewable natural capital, which is again the regeneration, maintaining biodiversity and all the ecosystem functions. So, if you look at the facets then of a typical circular bioeconomy, it would be land and marine ecosystems, primary production sectors, which is agriculture, forestry, fisheries, etc., and economic and industrial sectors relying on biological resources and nature-based solutions. These become essentially the key three facets of a circular bioeconomy. People started looking at this idea and formed circular bioeconomy alliances. And this alliance was established in 2020 by His Majesty King Charles III, formerly His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales. And the idea was pushed through a vehicle of living labs for nature, people, and planet. And this concept you see then, picked up by countries across the world, and they created such living labs. Sometimes we use the word sandboxing. How do you test the ideas in the field? How do you involve communities there? How do you revisit the culture there? How do you understand the material flows? How do you ensure more and more circularity, and so on and so forth? So it's a very interesting idea, and we also have a living lab in India, which is right now one of them under this program is a regenerative fashion landscapes in Himalaya, Kashmir. But I think I would say the model which we should look at carefully is the bio-circular green economy model, the BCG economy model. This is a part of Thailand's 4.0 policy that came up in 2022, and it became something which was formally adopted. And they utilized Thailand's strength in biological diversity, cultural richness, employs technology and innovation to transform the country to a value-based and innovation-driven economy. And again, all in conformance with the Sustainable Development Goals. So here, the foundation of the BCG model had four pillars: natural capital, human capital, social capital, and what they call as a produced capital, which is the manufactured capital, like build infrastructure, etc. So it integrates basically four uh, types of capitals, and that's the foundation. And this is how they try to put these pillars into a diagram where you see all of them: bioeconomy, green economy, and circular economy, and looking at all the three natural, for all the four, that is natural capital, social capital, human capital, and produced capital. So, colleagues, what happens here is this program, at the moment, you may look at it as more conceptual, but that's not the case. It's operational, and they have undertaken under their BCG model several pilots. Impact assessment just took place last year, and everybody looked at this model as an interesting model where we are fusing all these three concepts together. Chaitanya, I'm going to stop here at this point because I know the time is already up, and I can take a few questions before I close. Over to you.
Absolutely. I think this was extremely enlightening. the concept of circularity, the difference between what is a linear economy and a circular economy, the relationship between these three, the green, circular, and the bio. I think these have been extremely valuable. I think there are a couple of questions we should try and answer uh, before we wrap up this session. I think there's a lot to take away from what you, and then before you, what Professor Kamath also said. And I think any of the participants who would like to have their presentations, do drop us a note and we will share them, because without doubt there's a lot of wisdom, knowledge, information in these slides. But let me take a couple of questions which have come up. One is from Narendra Paul, who's actually one of our trustees too, is the potential or the projection in job creation in these three, particularly the green, bio, and circular economy from a rural India perspective. I think particularly when you talked about the bioeconomy, there was rural development in there. Dr. Kamath also talked about green skills, but maybe you can address this thing holistically now that we've got both your and Dr. Kamath's presentations. What is the projection for job creation in these three, in this entire space, especially in the rural India context?
So maybe I can quickly come in, Chaitanya?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
So I think Mr. Paul, right, who was asking this question. So you might have heard about Skill Council for Green Jobs. Skill Council of Green Jobs is a part of the NSGC, and their objective is to do skilling for people who will get opportunities for green jobs. And they have done certain projections already. I don't have the numbers with me, but if you Google Skill Council for Green Jobs, you'll get information. They have categorized the jobs for urban, rural, and again thematically so. So that's my suggestion. You can take a look at them. And if you're very interested, then talk to the Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Sachin, who is very, very high energy person. I'm sure he'll help you if you're really looking for numbers.
Excellent. There are a couple of questions again on BCG. One is from Arun, who was asking, could you share an example or two about attempts in India where this fusion model is being applied?
So, this term of the BCG model is not formally picked up in India as such. But there is another word we use, regional circular economy, which captures this. So currently, there is a pilot project which is commenced in the district Angul in Orissa. So there you'll get an idea. And I mentioned to you the circular economy action plan for the state of Gujarat. I think that will give you real projects which are being identified and are under implementation. Where some elements, although it's more pushed on circular economy, you do see in the regional circular economy entry of both the green and bioeconomy. In fact, the Angul project was a derivative of the PAGE program. PAGE program, I talked to you earlier about the green economy by the United Nations Environment Program. So yes, there are good examples what all projects are happening there. And I also see related a question about the living labs I talked about in the landscape of Himalaya. I don't have information, Mr. Joginder, on this, but I'm sure that maybe Chaitanya, I can send you some links and you
Sure.
could share and forward to Mr. Walia. I think, yeah.
Definitely.
And somebody wants to know, Sachin, how to reach. I will send you his WhatsApp number, Chaitanya.
Yeah,
And
please.
you can pass on to this
Amit
is
Tastikar, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I think it's almost 7:30, so we'll just take this last question and then wrap up. Are there any policies in the offing which will prioritize or incentivize participation of industry in circularity?
Yeah, big time. So Bhagesh, there's a huge material, uh, really huge material, where industry is actively engaged in circularity. And how do I tell you? Maybe, in 1992, I started building case studies from industry, and I was overwhelmed by 100 case studies where industries were practicing circularity. See, wherever there is a sure shot of making money, industries don't wait. And circularity many times promises that return. So there's just so much happening in our country that, I can give you some links, but there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
maybe just
there's a
Antapan,
very
if you can
Chaitanya,
share.
I may have to leave,
yeah,
unfortunately.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you once
Thank you so
again to
much.
everybody.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
I
Pleasure
mean,
to.
our gratitude to you, Dr. Modak and Dr. Kamath also. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
sparing your time, sharing your
My
expertise. It's
pleasure.
been an
And
extremely
yeah, I'll send you
insightful.
whatever I promised in an email and my slides also.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And
Okay. Bye-bye.
so I
Thank you.
look forward to seeing everybody else on the sessions tomorrow onwards. Tomorrow, a quick recap for those who you can stay back for 30 seconds. Tomorrow we have two entrepreneurs who have been developing products for urban waste management, and we will get to understand what are the challenges, what were the inspirations, and how they've gone about doing product development in an extremely challenging sort of space. And we also, to support that, we also have the national researcher from International Water Management Institute, Dr. Mansi Tripathi, who's going to be talking about a very important initiative that BIF and the International Water Management Institute has taken to set up an innovation hub for circular bioeconomy. And we will get to understand, uh, on the one hand, product developers, and on the other hand, the innovation hub that is being created, and how these things can support entrepreneurship, innovation, science and technology applications, and so on. So looking forward to have all of you tomorrow, and of course day after, and all the all the 4 days we have some really excellent change makers and people who have been working on the ground to share their lessons on this space with us. So I won't hold you all back. It's already 7:33, but again, very grateful. Dr. Kamath, thank you so much for sparing your time, staying with us, sharing your wisdom, knowledge, and background to help us understand this complex but very interesting space, which has so many touch points with respect to the planet, with respect to not just humans, but also all living beings on this planet. The entire biological world is touched by this, whether it is the animals or the plants and everything that sits in between all of us. So thank you all for attending today's opening first day, and I hope to see you again tomorrow. Thank you and have a good evening and a good night.
Thank you, Chaitanya.
Thank you so much.